Welcome, Megan. Thank you so much for taking the time to be a part of the project.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So Megan has a company called Dogma. So can you tell us a little bit about what Dogma does?
Sure. So we are a dog training business. I've got 2 facilities currently, and we do everything from day school to group classes to private training. We also have Dogma Academy, where we are teaching people to become dog trainers, providing education to professional dog trainers. And then we're also starting a new program for dog owners where they can get some of their dog training skills online.
And then you do a little bit of speaking on the side as well.
I do. So on a personal professional side, I do a lot of industry work, board work, and speaking. I do some specific to the dog training industry, and I also do some for business.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So you started out in software and web, not dog related stuff. How did you get started in software, and what was your history there?
It was kind of just sort of what I landed into with the first job I had in high school. I thought I would always become a vet, work with animals in some form, and then just realized that wasn't particularly what I wanted to do with animals. And I had a job where it was a small business. I had a great first mentor as a boss that taught me a lot of skills I think I still carry with me. And with that time, he was looking to do some more development on some systems for his company and kind of plunked me into the Access database world. And I developed a program there where their salesmen could cost jobs, do commissions, all of this stuff. And within that, I got some certifications through them and then went on to go into e-commerce and software development. So a completely different world. And then I started my first business doing web design. And when I did that, I had more flexibility, decided to start volunteering with the Calgary Humane Society. And then needless to say, my life kind of shot off once I recognized that you could actually have a career being a dog trainer and working with dogs. So, yeah.
How did you transition from having your own web company? What happened to the web company when you transitioned into dog training?
I did both for a while. Actually, I was working at an EPC company downtown and doing some work, and then I had my website business on the side, and I was doing some dog training. So I was working with Calgary Humane Society, doing some consulting. That's when I first incorporated Dogma, was doing that work. So I was doing a lot of hours doing a lot of work. And then I quit the EPC company looking for a location, and essentially I got into doing my own thing because of a dog that I adopted. And he came to me with a whole variety of behavior skills or challenges, and he was a scary dog. He was scared of the world, but he showed it through some very scary behavior. So as I started looking for help with him, I realized that it didn't really exist. And the only option there was some very heavy-handed punishment-based type training. And I had, through my education, I knew there was better ways to work with him, but I also recognized that I had this really sweet dog at home that just needed to understand the world was safe. And so it really led me into a career of helping dogs like him, and just kind of as I got more into that world, the software world just became less exciting and the web design work. And
how long did it take for the dog to be what you would typically consider well trained?
It took a while because he was kind of a guinea pig too. He was a very forgiving dog, but because we're seeing more and more of that now where we're helping dogs, but dogs like that typically were just kind of locked in a room or euthanized. People didn't really understand as a trainer too why I would want to help him. But I really felt like my skills as a dog trainer, I should be helping a dog like him. And so it was a lot of trial and error, a lot of mistakes. But he moved to the point that he could come to seminars I put on. We kind of joked that I maybe overdid it. He became a little bit of an attention whore instead and really enjoyed his time with people. But I would say it was a good 4 to 6 years with him, but also doing a lot of mistakes in that process. And learning things that were maybe setting him back or making it worse as well. So,
So that sounds like a really great learning experience. When you were trying to do both, like once you started operating Dogma as a business and you're still operating the web company, what motivated you to put in those long hours, and what kind of long hours were you working?
passion, I think, really. And it's not just a cliche, it's really just that drive to recognize that things can be done better. And that really motivated me. I've always had a real ability to view animals as sentient beings, and seeing that dogs are becoming part of the family so much, I just recognized it was to help the world be better for them, but it also helps the families and the people who love dogs. So kind of at Dogma, we call it our core focus as being we want to improve the lives of dogs, but the people who love them. And that really stemmed from my work with Guinness. And then with the web design stuff, there was a commitment to continuing education. The world was really changing. And I just really recognized I didn't have the passion and the drive to put the time in there, but I really had that drive to put the hours in to, I saw the potential with the industry as well, I think. So
that was like 2006, 2007-ish, right?
yeah, so I incorporated Dogma in 2006 with the intention of opening a facility. And then it took about 2 years to be able to find a facility. Most people didn't understand what dog daycare was at the time. I was a young girl without really I had the web design, but not a location type business experience. I was competing with businesses that weren't taking dogs in to the facility. So it was really hard to even find a location and find someone even willing to give me that chance. No one understood it. Like, I didn't have bank financing. Landlords didn't really want a bunch of dogs in their building. So it was really challenging to find that in the beginning.
So how did you decide that it was time to give up the web design company? And was that difficult?
No, it wasn't difficult. And I think part of it was recognizing, as a business owner, if you want to grow a business, your commitment you have to put into it. And it just wasn't there. And I'm just one of those people that I'm going to do something, I want to be able to commit to it. And I couldn't commit, and it became more of a task and something I didn't really want to do. So it was easy. I think it was kind of a slow transition. I still had clients that I enjoyed that I just helped sort of maintain. And as they evolved, because the web industry in the beginning, it was really just like 5 kind of brochure type pages. And so as people were looking for more for their website, it was easy to just transition them off to someone else.
Interesting. For your first facility that you opened in 2008, how did you get financing for that, or was it entirely bootstrapped?
It was bootstrapped. So I did a home equity loan and and took that money to help. And we did all renovations on our own. I paid people pizza and beer to come in and help paint or do anything. And then anything we needed to have contractors for or anything, we would pay that way. But we did the bulk of the work. So we had 3 months rent free, and we just went in and worked to get it ready to open.
So was that a bit of a scary thing, taking out a home equity line of credit to fund the business?
I think it was more scary for everyone else. I don't know if it was sort of that young, just fearlessness or something there. I never really questioned what I was doing. I really just had this gut feeling this is what I was supposed to be doing, and it was going to work, and there was a need for it. And it was a 6,000 square foot space too. So people thought I was nuts. A lot of people wanted me to open about, like 1,000 square feet. But when you need to house dogs and have them in there and be able for them to safely be in there for the day, you need the space. So in order to do it right, and so it was scary, but it was an exciting scary. And I was like making those decisions. They've always benefited me well. So.
Mm-hmm. I've known personally entrepreneurs in the past who maybe didn't have the best business idea, or didn't really have a proven model, and they risked things like their house on it, and it didn't end particularly well. What advice do you have for people on deciding whether it's worth that risk or not?
Well, I think it was that I wasn't starting the business brand new then. So I had been running as a trainer. I had invested a lot of time in networking. I had a client base. I'd really started to solidify myself as an expert. So putting that kind of risk, I wasn't doing it just brand new with no one kind of knowing and not already having a business there at least. And so there's that side of it. It's also making sure that you have a safety net. I didn't have it. I wouldn't recommend that. At the same time, I also think not having the safety net has made me make very creative decisions and things that maybe I wouldn't have done if I had it. So it's just not necessarily something I would recommend. I would definitely, because even some of the challenges I've had, if I would have maybe created more of a safety net for myself, we maybe wouldn't have gone through some of those challenging times too, or as challenging.
Yeah. It's always an interesting line because some people say, "Oh, it's totally okay to fail, and you have to try all these different things, and if you fail, it's not a problem." But then I know some really successful entrepreneurs, like Graham Sherman, for example, who said that when he was starting out, because all of his friends were invested in him and everything was on the line, that failure wasn't an option, and that's what made him successful, was because he couldn't let himself fail. Right? What are your thoughts on that? Where do you think that line should be drawn?
I I think you have to be passionate about it because, and I would say I have failed and I failed a lot. I haven't failed to the point of business shutting down, and I think also there was a timing in my industry. Like I was one of the first in the city and seeing that industry growing and being able to look at maybe what was happening in the States that was kind of bubbling up to Canada. And so there was some proof of concept there, and I wasn't opening in, like nowadays, if someone wanted to open something similar, there's a lot of competition now, right? So you'd want to make sure you have some of those things in place first. But that's exactly it. Without having that safety net, I've got to solve it and make it work. Right. And it is that, whether it was just sort of that defiance, I had a lot of naysayers or people thought I was crazy. So there's always this drive. And also just feeling like we have something important to do in this industry. I've always really felt that, and I never really feeling like my work is done, that motivates me to get through whatever kind of challenges and just solve them. Like, you have to solve them. I can't. I think the only difference between myself and maybe people who haven't been able to continue is that people quit. And I just haven't.
So how many similar businesses now would you say there are in the city, roughly?
There is dog training. I mean, there's tons, but that's everything from just someone offering dog training services where I first started, up to facilities where we're seeing 20 plus now, easily, and more popping up all the time. So, but the pet industry continues to grow. So I really view it as a positive for the industry and a positive for us, that the more we see that growth, the more we see the demand, and it's great. So,
So when you started the online academy in 2009, what did that look like at inception?
It wasn't online first. So it was in person that we did it. And I had a lot of people, we're completely unregulated. We're not even really a recognized profession right now. So we're going to see that change. But when I first started, people couldn't just go to school to become a dog trainer. So I had a lot of people approaching me wanting to just basically shadow me to become a professional. And at Dogma, we're always trying to set a different standard. And my goal is to really professionalize the industry as well. And so I saw a need for people to have a more structured approach to education, and really so they could come out as qualified trainers, not just kind of say they spend some hours with dogs, going a little bit above and beyond. And so I started the first program, just kind of mapped out what I thought would work and what people would learn, and did it so they were doing 1 day a month learning with me on a Sunday, and then they were basically just doing observation and hands-on. And so it was a way that they could come into the business, get that learning with us while we were already working anyways. I was hoping to have a couple people just kind of run it, and we filled out a max the first program with very little notice, and I built it as we went. And So there's a good need. People wanted the skills, they wanted the experience. And then it's evolved. And then we started seeing people come from Fernie, Grand Prairie, trying to come in and do the program. And so that's why we're moving it online. And so we've started doing that. And then our goal is to get that out of market, but still be able to provide people the hands-on experience.
What was your biggest struggle between the first and second facilities?
Just all of a sudden not being there all the time. So even if I was out for short periods, I still really had a presence. And then suddenly I'm trying to balance time between two locations, but also just my own time. And everything you sort of think you put in place for systems and quality control and all of these things, you also have the human factor of that, and making sure that people are upholding those systems and following them, and learning that it's not until you're well out of them that you need to go back and do some retraining and really tighten things up. So it was tough. Going to the second location was far more challenging than the opening of the first one.
Mm-hmm. So during that time, you obviously would have had to delegate quite a few things that would have been probably difficult to delegate. What did you learn about putting processes in place for quality control, like you mentioned? Like, what advice do you have for entrepreneurs who are scaling to the point where they can't maintain that quality control themselves?
Yeah, your non-negotiables, I think, are a big one. Keeping things very simple, too. If you can make it so, some of the things we've implemented at Dogma are just like every decision we make is for the overall well-being of the dog. So if my team can just answer that, is what happening right now improving behavior or maintaining it at least, it allows them some pretty quick decision making. And not over processing things either. Because I think you get to a point that if you outline too much, you take away teams' ability to make decisions, and if there's not a process, they can struggle with that. So you don't want to over process it, but have enough systems in place and help them, give them tools so that they can make decisions based on, your values or standards that we've set for the business. And
yeah, that's really important, to empower people to be able to make decisions on their own, because if you don't, you have mindless people that won't be able to deal with things that come up that are unexpected.
Yeah, exactly. And making sure you've got the right people too, is huge.
So originally, did you think about hiring for like a cultural fit in the early days?
Not really. When I first started, the whole team culture thing wasn't as big as it is now, but I had learned enough of it that part really excited me too. And so I envisioned, because I really believe in the thing that you have more impact if you have more people working towards a goal. So I was excited when people came in and they really bought into our mission and what we were trying to accomplish. And so that excited me. And I think it was just sort of natural stuff where I was really grateful to have a team that wanted to do what we were doing. And in turn, we put a lot of things in place that just led to a good culture without really understanding what we were developing. If that, it was, and then as we started to, and it was team identifying things that they found valuable, we started to recognize those and then really build on that.
In the 12 years that you've been working on the business, when do you think you were working the most and had the most stress?
I would say each new stage of growth. There's always kind of this time where you have to get in. The time where I worked the most was definitely the beginning, because I felt like I'd sort of built myself a prison. I was excited about it, but we did day school and it was open 6:30 till 6:30. I taught the classes. We would run classes till 9:30 at night. So typically I was at the facility from about 6 till about 10:30 at night. I did that Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday nights. Wednesday nights I would do private training, so going to clients' houses. Weekends I did classes and training, and typically it was coming in to do kind of record keeping. And that's part of a bootstrapped business. If I would do anything different, I would have hired much sooner. And so I would say on an actual hours worked, that was the most, but I also don't look back on it as being stressful because it was really exciting to me. I was just kind of driven by that energy. But also recognizing some things that could have gone really bad if something had happened to me or, made it so I couldn't work those hours. But I would say some of the most stressful have been definitely going to the second location, and then anytime just trying to get growth going in the scaling, trying to build it out. Those have been some trying times.
What have you found has helped you maintain physical and mental health and I guess maybe a little bit of work-life balance?
Yeah, I think I've got a really good mindset on things, and the fact that I always go to problem solving and finding solutions versus dwelling too much on what might be going bad at the time, and also just expecting that there's going to be challenges. And if there's not, then we're not likely growing. So I think that's helped me just keep moving. I think that's the reality of owning a business. You're constantly solving. On getting through some of the challenges with it, it's having the right people around you, and people that support you, but also people that understand the challenges of business and running a business. Because I went through a stage where it was really stressful and I had great family and friends, but not a lot of people that understood what it was like to manage a big team and try to grow a business and cash flow problems and all of that. So once I was able to surround myself with people that understood that more, that helps so much. People that just get those problems. And then just being disciplined to yourself with that time. So I know, like, walking my dogs, it's a big thing. I live by Fish Creek Park, and that's a huge part of my own kind of mental and physical health is regular walks out with my dogs, unplugging, getting out, just enjoying my time with them, but also out kind of feeling like you're out of the city, but not. And then I start every single day with yoga.
Nice.
Yeah, so...
beginning of December, Riley and we started a competition to see who could work out the most days in 2 months. And even just like forcing myself to do half an hour of exercise, even when I'm like really tired or really don't want to, makes a big difference in how I can cope with things. And it's been really beneficial.
It's amazing, isn't it? And that was it. Someone, I don't remember who, but someone had talked about making a promise to yourself, and how if we can't keep a promise to ourselves. And so just how that just wasn't a good way to lead life, right? So to really be able to make a promise to yourself. And I was trying to do the yoga everyday thing, but it would always hit the back burner if it needed. And so I'd made that promise to myself. And then, so just this past year, December 31st was 2 years straight. So it was like 730 days and we're still keeping with it. And it's whatever it is, just start the day with it. If there's something that's gone on that starting the day isn't feasible, it just happens that day. But I can even tell the difference if I don't start the day with it. And then I do a goal just with walking the dogs. So a distance goal during the week. And that's really, really helped. And it's amazing. To the point now that if I'm struggling with something, I feel like I've got to do yoga or take the dogs out, or it becomes your outlet, which I think is really good too.
Yeah. How long do you typically do yoga for? And do you just do it at home?
Yeah, I have an app and it varies. And again, that's something because I was trying to do a lot. And so sometimes on the days if I had a really busy day and there was like 45-minute yoga, it started becoming more of a task than something I enjoyed. And so this past year I focused on the practice more of it. And so even if I was sick or something, it might just be a 10-minute really slow one, but it's more about the practice versus the push of it, right? And it's really helped. And
yeah, it's interesting the difference between people that work a typical like 9-to-5 job and entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs or even just people that are self-employed are constantly dealing with different struggles that are foreign to someone who does a 9-to-5, right? And being able to have someone that you can share those things with is or multiple people is very beneficial.
Definitely. And I think one of the most powerful things is the starting the day. So the yoga has been something, but there's just such a difference on the days if I'm really like, I get up early, I get up before the business opens. I don't check the phone, I do reading, I do yoga, I just kind of drink my coffee in the dark and it's nice and quiet. And it's been amazing. It's remarkable at how different your day then goes from that. So
how long is your typical morning routine?
Usually about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Okay. Yeah. So, and then, and it's just kind of that time where I just, like I said, enjoy coffee, read, just kind of take my time, whatever it might be. And then I can start the day as early as 7 at that point, or it could be 8 to 9 a.m. So,
so are you typically getting up around like 5 then?
Yeah. Yeah. And if something happens, like if we had something going on the night before, that's something I've learned too, is I'll still wake up early, but I don't put so much pressure on myself for that routine in the morning, so I adjust it, but I still make sure it happens.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
When, so you were really heavily affected by the minimum wage increase.
Yeah.
What year was that?
It started, I think the biggest impact we saw from it was about 2017 to 18. We started getting wind of it. Like, we knew it was coming, but it still seemed like it happened really fast. I think they scaled it out over 3 years, but it still seemed really fast.
Yeah, businesses, especially restaurants, really got hit hard.
Yeah, and I think that's it. Because we were training people to become dog trainers, so our model was typically we were getting people that were brand new to the industry coming in. They would start in the daycare and they would be kind of just doing glorified cleaning duties. And then they were getting experience on the job and then could become a dog trainer. And we are seeing a lot of people that were just getting out of school, even people that were thinking about if they wanted to become a vet or what they wanted to do. So they would just come and work within the business. So a lot of, entry level people as well. We weren't, if we sort of had this divide between our daycare workers and doing that stuff and trainers. And so I just had to flip the model upside down because we just had to take away that position, essentially. We just couldn't have people coming in at that wage. And it also really put the business out of balance because we were providing the education, the training, and giving people that advancement. Yeah. Suddenly, if you're bringing people in, and we always took pride in hiring above minimum wage, but suddenly if you're bringing people in at minimum wage being $15, if you had someone that was a skilled trainer that was working for $18, they know what those people are making. And we had to really shift everything. So it wasn't just that role that had a big impact financially, it had a big impact on our whole model.
Yeah, I think you said it increased your payroll expense by 38%.
Yeah, and fast. And then we had to downsize too. Like, we had no choice. So we kind of had to downsize the number of team, take away non-essential roles, try to fill certain roles with anything automation we could, and really look at ways we could do more within our time as well.
How many people did you have to cut?
We had about 30 and we went down to 20. So we cut 30%. Yeah. So you put more demands on people too. But I think there's kind of always the plus that comes out of it. And the fact that you start to think about how to work things more efficiently and effectively and what are some non-essential things that are happening. So I think on a timing side, especially looking at scaling out our model, as challenging as it was, I also think there's a lot of benefits to us for moving forward.
Mm-hmm. So how quickly did you change your business model when that happened?
We started testing things. So the one big part in order for that to be successful was also elevate our services. So we would always provide elevated training services. We would do kind of this daycare model. And we've always done a bit more in that there's training that's always happening with the dogs and some enrichment, but we had to, we would charge for any kind of extra training that the dogs needed. And then we started our private school program. So we started with puppies and it was a focus on training and socialization, and they're working with certified trainers all day. So not just entry level people coming in. And we just had to kind of do a lean model essentially and kind of test it out at kinder pups, like with the puppies. And then we saw demand from the clients. They wanted their dogs to stay in a program like that and not age out. So we started offering that. Then we went to just do it to clients, and now it's our entire model. So we essentially doubled the cost of the service to the client, but we also are able to provide much more value now, and with some of the online stuff as well. So,
yeah, that's really cool. It's surprising that the government doesn't realize the negative impacts of like those kind of things on businesses. Like that combined with the property tax increase really like killed a lot of businesses.
It is, and then all of that just raises costs on everything as well. So just the cost of running a business, supplies, any of that stuff, all of that increases. And then any type of increase you put out on your services too, there's also the human side of it where they feel like they're paying for things too. We're seeing it across the economy, like homeowners, everyone losing jobs, anything. So even having to do price increases during those times is really challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah,
my friend he owns a cafe, and it took out his entire profit margin. He had to cut a third of his staff. It's crazy. It's like
we felt like we were just kind of getting sucker punched on all sides. And then you also have people within the industry that kind of go and undercut a lot of it too, which can be really challenging. So yeah, there's a lot of it was a very, very challenging time to get through.
So what kind of undercutting do you see typically in your industry? I'm guessing you'd have people that are working from home and doing dog training and stuff, right?
Yeah, there's a lot where they don't have overhead, which is pretty normal. People that run outdoor classes, just strictly, a lot of that might not be the best decision for the dogs either, or set them up for the best success, or they're just working from home. We also have a lot of people going and offering free services, and I'm in an industry, because we're not very professionalized too. Profit's kind of a bad word, we're an industry where dog trainers would do it because they love it. And so we also have a lot of people that it's a hobby job, so they have a full-time job and then they teach classes and maybe do a bit of training on the side. And so when you're doing it just for the love of it, you're maybe not thinking, but as we're seeing the industry grow, we're also seeing where people need to start charging more, and we need to also start demonstrating more professionalism in that sense. So
you definitely see that in photography so much, and video too, but like photography, so many people do it as a side job, and they'll just do shoots for free, and the really good photographers definitely lose a chunk of their business.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, for sure. And people just not understanding, because people will come to us and say, well, you're charging this much where I can go to this person. I'm like, yeah, but I've got this many dogs and staff and a building and all of these other expenses that go in that. So, and that's been tough, because even as we have done things where we've done price increases, you see everyone rise up to them. But we've got a very different model. So our profit margin is a challenge, right?
Yeah. I imagine to a degree your reputation and brand have probably really helped position you in such a way that people would kind of see you as a premium, better product, hey?
Yeah, and we saw that actually when we saw minimum wage and all of these things go on. We did see quite a few businesses in the industry close, and I think a lot of that is kind of the riffraff. You get rid of it a bit, and what we saw is people love their dogs. They're part of the family, so they want quality care. And so we were able to do things like increase prices and still see growth. And when it was kind of the worst for everyone, we also had our best year. So I think that we're in an industry that at least allows us to. I also recognize that, because people do love their animals. So they don't want to compromise on the care of them for cost. So they do recognize that, and it helps.
Yeah, my parents raise organic beef, and people will spend a large amount of money on dog food, like from like leftovers and stuff like that. It's not cheap.
No, it's not. And and it just keeps growing. Like people want to do the best for their dogs. That's our clients. They're sort of the ones that, here's my dog, just do whatever here, just make them happy. And then they're like, nothing is too good for my dogs. And that's where we fill in. We help them on from the time they're puppy right up through their entire lives. We support and just make sure they're living the best lives. So
What advice do you have for business owners for delegating management? Because you had some struggles with that, haven't you?
Huge, because I think the initial success of Dogma, a lot of it had to do with being a really good dog trainer, but also a dog trainer that enjoyed people too.
Mm-hmm.
So it blended well. We wanted to, I wanted to help people. I wanted to help dogs. We were really focused on making the right choices for the dogs. So we saw great growth from that. And then all of a sudden, I had to recognize that in order to grow the business, I had to become the business owner and not the dog trainer. And that was a very tough transition because, and for my clients saw Dogma as Megan. And so it was tough as I started transitioning out, also for the clients to have trust that the team could handle it. So that was a big surprise to me. And a big challenge was first just letting them recognize that the team was capable and I trusted them, so they should trust them. But it was really tough because dog training is what I love to do. And so to step out of that, but also recognizing in order to grow, I really had to delegate that off. And I was just really honest with my team. When it came to when I was getting to the end of classes and teaching that, I told them that I apologized if I was kind of difficult, but that it was very tough for me to let go of that. And so just to be open and honest with me if I was being difficult. And it was a challenge because you also put so much trust. We've got living beings in our buildings, right? Mm-hmm. And people are very emotional about their pets, and there's a lot of high expectations, and we can deliver that. But if there's any mistakes that made, they can have some pretty serious consequences. And so that would keep me up and make it kind of stressful, to delegate it out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's it's like you're taking care of someone's relative almost, right?
Yeah, and they can't talk, right? So we have this whole other they can't talk, so people put a lot of trust in us on what we're doing and helping with.
So your speaking career, you're part of an organization. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was on the Association for Professional Dog Trainers. I was on their board. I just finished my term at the end of 2019. So I was with them for about 4.5 years. 2018, I was the first Canadian to be chair of that association. So that was really exciting, learned lots. It was working at a high-level industry level, which was really great, and people from all over the world. We're the largest and oldest organization for professional dog trainers, so it was great. I really enjoyed that, and now I just accepted and am on the board for the Canadian Association of Professional Dog Trainers, so that one flourished for a while, and then it just kind of disappeared, and there's a really great group of people that are trying to get it back in Canada and really help Canadian dog trainers, so I'm excited to see where that goes. And
how heavily was that influenced by like sheepdogs and that kind of thing in the past?
A lot of it, because really dog trainers back in the day, they sort of became dog trainers because of performance sports or doing competitive obedience. And that was even for myself when I started, I was a real anomaly as a dog trainer because I was taking this problem dog and trying to help him versus sort of how a dog trainer was identified as being a good dog trainer is you could go to a breeder and pick the right puppy that was going to be successful and you could go and compete with. And that still exists and is great. And we're seeing some really positive change there. And so that really was what dog training was in the beginning, like a lot of more competitive type stuff. But where that association started was with a vet behaviorist who recognized that family dogs needed more help, and he basically started puppy school and wanted to create a place for dog trainers to come together to really further the industry. So
fascinating.
Yeah.
So what are some issues that you see in the industry with the way dogs are trained?
There's still a lot of very outdated methods, so very heavy punishment based. Dogs are pretty wonderful because they are so adaptable and actually can get through quite a bit. But we also see a lot of fallout. So, anyone can call themselves a dog trainer. You could decide that you really love dogs, and tomorrow you could print up a business card and go out and become a dog trainer. You could open up a facility. You could do whatever you want behind closed doors. There's absolutely zero regulations and no one monitoring anything. And so who pays for that are the dogs we see. And so there's a lot of challenges in that sense that we need to see it professionalize, because when we see training methods that are really heavy, it's a safety issue,
Right.
you know? So learning behavior, all of that is no different if it's a human, if it's a dog, if it's a cat, a horse, a dolphin. We know that it's not effective and there's a lot of potential risk if you use punishment to teach. And so our stuff is we want to teach dogs what's not acceptable, but show them what to do instead and make that actually fun for them to do. And people want to get out and enjoy time with their dogs, so there shouldn't be the need for the conflict or stress or frustration in training. It should be something enjoyable for everyone, and that keeps it safe.
What kind of questions should dog owners ask the businesses to avoid that kind of thing?
I think qualifications is a big one, but again, because we're not regulated, and even still with our qualifications, it doesn't mean someone can go and get a certification, but it doesn't mean that they can't go and do something pretty horrific to your dog. So qualifications, definitely. Reward-based training is a must. We have trainers out there that say that they don't use treats, but they're still positive. But you need to be rewarding the dog somehow in order for them to learn and enjoy it. If they're not, they're using some form of punishment. And so even asking, what would you do if my dog makes the right choice, and what would you do if my dog makes the wrong choice, right, is a really just simple way to find out, because there should never, as a dog trainer, I've never been bit by a dog because of my choices. I work with dogs of all breeds, of all behaviors. I've worked with dogs who have serious aggression concerns, and I don't get bit because I learn how to communicate, and it's two-way. And so I want to make that dog feel safe. I want to work with them. So there should be nothing that's adding to that conflict and putting anyone at risk.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on some of the dog breeds that are being bred for a certain look and might not be so naturally superior?
Yeah, it's pretty sad. I think it's interesting because as humans, we're drawn to what we're defining as cute, which is actually kind of mutant traits in dogs. And we're doing some really horrible things. We actually had a dog that almost died from they're one of the flat-nosed dogs. Mm-hmm. Right? And so we're seeing issues with airway and breathing, and it was a bulldog, and it was nothing except just how it was bred and physical. And so their throats actually shut. And so that's a risk that dog's going to have its whole life. It's going to have to be constantly supervised because of the breeding. And so, there's some great documentaries out there, but we just want to be aware of anything like dogs that are getting really buggy eyes too. They're at risk of eyes falling out, like popping out, serious eye injuries, and we're also seeing dogs just with their stance and their gait. There's a lot of things that we're doing that we think is cute or great for the breed, but again, isn't the right choice for the dogs on a health stance. So,
mm-hmm. What are a couple of your favorite breeds in terms of like really resilient and really smart?
I'm not really breedist in the sense that I don't really have, because I've seen dogs. I mean, there's definitely breed characteristics, but I've had mutts. Most of mine I love shepherds. I love border collies, like the herding breeds. They're really fun to work with, which is great. We have 2 pit bulls at home right now, and I love having my one boy. Is a big goofy boy, and he comes with me to lots, and he's a real kind of ambassador for the breed because he's about 100 pounds and kind of scary to a lot of people, but he's the biggest suck and just really well behaved and goofy and sweet. So I have a real soft spot for them right now because, again, it's a perception thing. So any of those bully breeds, and just showing that if you do make them feel safe and you take the right approach and you're doing the right training with them, you can have some really wonderful dogs regardless of what breed.
Mm-hmm. My friend is a King Doberman, and it's like a horse, but it is the biggest suck. It's just like the biggest softie. So if someone were to like try to break into his house, the dog like runs and like hides.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
hilarious.
that's awesome. Like,
Yeah. So what are your goals both personally and for the business in the next, say, 10 years?
personally, I think which kind of falls into industry level, like really helping to professionalize. I want to help dog trainers see that profit is not a bad word. And I want to see us work together to really improve the industry. So stuff with the board work, that will continue, but I want to offer more to professional dog trainers to provide them with business skills, help them be successful. I think we've got a lot of scarcity mindset in the industry too. So I want to help people recognize that the more that we kind of help each other and grow, it benefits everyone. And do more speaking with that, I think, as well. I want to fight for regulations. I want to see some standards set, at least some minimum standards. And for Dogma, we truly believe that dogs deserve more dogmas. So working at scaling the business out and just getting further reach to help more dogs.
Awesome. That sounds really exciting.
I think so. It is pretty exciting.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it. I
Thank you.
learned a lot from this interview.
Awesome. Thank you.
Our first sponsor is Syndication, which is a video production company that I started. We do video production and online marketing for businesses of all sizes, ranging from solopreneurs to Fortune 500 companies.
Our next sponsor is Flagship Business Brokers. Flagship Business Brokers provides entrepreneurs with support through the purchase, sale, or financing of a business. They have a proven track record of delivering fast, cost-efficient, and client-focused transactions.
Another sponsor of the Ambition Project is BusinessLink. BusinessLink is Alberta's entrepreneurial hub. They are a nonprofit organization that helps people navigate the steps towards starting their own businesses. Just because you're in business for yourself doesn't mean you're in business by yourself. BusinessLink's team of in-house startup experts are there to support you all along the way.